Because you think that the best means you got to give up everything, it sure does.
Yes.
Giving up everything that is not in the will of God still will profit you everything that you need, everything that you should desire when you're in the will of God. You can't gamble, throw in the dice and throw in the towel and say, it just seems so much fun on the outside. I want to be on the inside, but I want to be on the outside. The Bible tells us that's being lukewarm.
Right.
And God says you either be hot or cold, but don't be lukewarm because I'll spew you out of my mouth, declares the Lord. You got to choose which way you want to go. How many of you are, as you're hearing me, you're like, I've been there. Oh, I'm there right now.
Right.
Sister Tami ain't the only one. You're not the only one who's struggling with. You've been dealing with it. You've been ministering to people. You've been helping people time after time after time. You and your husband. But, okay. You finally said, okay, God, I give it to him.
Right.
But in the midst of saying that, you realize you gave up some things that you didn't even know that you gave up.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
The kids, putting my all into the kids. Education, I know I needed to go back to school and do stuff. Had worked at UC Irvine for 16 years and was happy and was making decent money and was doing good. And he wanted this thing where he wanted a family business. And so went out and looked into it, and we ended up investing in a budget rental car franchise.
Okay.
But because he worked and made a large amount of income, it made more sense for me to come off of my job, run the business, and then he still keep his job.
Right, you all were partnering together. You were husband and wife, and you decided we're going to do this together.
Right.
So I'll do the sacrifice. There's a sacrifice for the success.
Oh, it was a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it was something that I really did not want to do. But because it was something my head wanted to do, I didn't question it. And automatically, I'm like, oh, okay, well, retirement-wise, he got me. Benefits. Yeah, I'd be giving up some benefits, but he has benefits. Yeah. So we'd always be working together, but it wasn't a desire of mine. I made the sacrifice because it was something he wanted to do.
Wow.
He wanted to do. And gladly, I don't even think he knew I didn't want to do it. He was my head. He was my covering.
Right.
And he was good at it. He was committed to it. So I had no reason to doubt that I was leaving my 14 years of retirement, that I was sacrificing something I would have lost in the end.
Yeah. So in the midst of the choices that you've made and the sacrifices that you gave, and it's not one-sided. I wanted to, I'm sure there were sacrifices he made.
Oh, definitely.
I'm sure that there were things, because one thing is, at the end of the day, it's always three sides to every story.
Right.
Three.
Right.
The two parties, or the parties, left side, right side, then the truth. Three sides. And so we stand on the truth, and the truth is, at the end of the day, God still was working on your heart as he was working on his heart.
Yes.
I'm a firm believer.
Yes.
Because if you say that he was still a child of God, yeah, he still was working on his heart. He
Right.
still could be working on his heart.
And he was never rude.
Yeah.
Through the whole process.
Right.
He was never rude. He was never intentionally mean. Everything he said, he was genuinely sorry.
Yeah.
You can tell that he was genuinely sorry, but he had made up in his mind that this is what he was going to do, and wasn't nothing going to change his mind.
Wow.
When he left, I said, man of God, can we talk? He didn't want to talk, but he sat down. But while he was sitting down, his head is down, and I said, get yourself together.
Yeah.
Come home. I thank you for the 21 years you gave me.
Yeah.
I thank you for raising the kids. You were a great father. You were a great husband. Great man of God.
Yeah.
Get yourself together.
Wow.
And he got up and he walked out.
So he got up and walked out. And so we looked at this, but there's something that you told me as I was talking to you, before we decided to sit down and talk about this, to share it. And she brought up, Tami brought up something about marbles.
Yeah, I had heard Reva McEntire one day. Somebody had asked her what happened, why was she getting a divorce? And she said, he decided he didn't want to play with me no more. She said, so I picked my marbles up and I went to play somewhere else. And that was so powerful to me. And I said, that's it, God. I done lost my marbles. As kids, when we played, I don't know if you played marbles. I was a tomboy.
I played marbles.
Yeah, we had the cat's eye. We had the steelies, our best ones.
Yeah.
But we still would give them away. Yeah. And that's what I felt like I had gave all of me away. Because I was so, and it wasn't even like I was determined to make this work, because it was working. I didn't think I had to fight to make something work that was already working.
Right.
And so I decided one day, that's what's missing. I done lost all my marbles. I'm going to get all my marbles back. I'm going to get back my self-esteem. I'm going to get back my finances, my life. Yes, girl. Because I had stopped hanging out. I wouldn't go nowhere. I wouldn't go to a play. Wouldn't go to a concert because I didn't want to run into them. I don't want to see that. Yeah. So I wouldn't go anywhere. Wow. The social media. I don't do social media because I don't want to see any of that. But I said, okay, let me pick up self-esteem. Let me pick up socializing. Yeah. Let me pick up worshiping. Yeah. Yeah. Because, I was worshiping to a certain extent, but when you have to look at something, it'll distract you, it'll mess you up. But thank God that I have a leader that said, you're no longer to watch this. And they had to leave. My God. And that takes boldness. Yeah, and I thank God for him. When your leader realizes when someone is not just caught in sin, but decides they want to stay in sin. How many leaders out here are willing to take a stand? Are you too afraid that if I confront my members that continue in sin and don't want to change, that I'm going to lose the membership? They're going to walk off and the money that they bring to the church, I won't get no more. Are you too afraid to confront them and tell them, you need to turn away from the sin, repent, and get right back with God? Yeah, you may be telling them, but to be really serious about it, because God is serious about it. He can't look upon sin. He loves the person, but he hates the sin. Yes. How about our pastors and bishops? How about taking a stand for righteousness, regardless if you have 10 that will stay and go with you the whole way, and let go of the others that don't want to go? We got to check that. How about you out there that are listening and maybe looking at our broadcast, and you're saying, you know what, Sister Tami, I lost my marbles too. I gave them away. I lost my hope. I lost my joy. I lost my self-esteem, my self-worth. I let it all go. I let go. My health isn't right. Yes. My mind ain't right, but I put a smile on my face. Yes. Yes. I put a smile on my face, and I have friends that'll smile back at me, but yet talk about me behind my back. Yes. We are hurting, but God is here to restore. So as we continue to move into this conversation and talk about it, we got to see where you come from to really appreciate where you are now. Right. And that's something that a lot of people are afraid to do, is talk about the testimony. Right. Right. You can test a lie. Right. But we want to talk about the testimony. Right. Which means you got to expose some things that may not be pretty, that people may not understand. There's one thing that you said. You said, what was the process? And when people would talk about you, I had two sets of people. Those who generally prayed me through, and those was ones that I call the ones who carried me. I said, Jesus was in the house, and they heard, and they carried the layman, and they lowered him through. Yeah. I had those that would do that. But then I had the ones that was Job's friends. My. Who were talking about me. You need to ask God what you did wrong. It's okay for people to fall out of love. You need to do this and you need to do that. And a lot of times we say the good outweigh the bad. Yeah. This time the bad outweighed. It was so many negative people that I was beat down. So we're going to take a break.
we're going to come back and we're going to listen to Tami talk about how although the good outweighed the bad, or should I say the bad outweighed the good from what she says. And it's not by chance that I'm saying the good outweighed the bad,
Right.
because sometimes God will take us through it, the process, and we say that it's bad, but
Right.
actually it was good.
Yes.
It was for our glory. It's for God's glory, but for our victory. Hold tight. We'll be back. Keep listening. Let's talk about it with Tami Dotson.